hung around till 10 o'clock in the evening one night.
We kept the house open. But you know what? Because of Chairman Berman and Chairman Payne's leadership and commitment to ensuring that this take place before Mr. Mandela's birthday, we were able to say happy birthday, Mr. Mandela, with a signed bill that has taken him off, he and the ANC off of the terrorist list. And this to us was the greatest birthday gift that we in America could give, because as Congresswoman Kilpatrick said, he never should have been on the list of terrorists. And the ANC never should have been on that list. Mr. Mandela's personified fight against apartheid showed us that with his dignified defiance, how one never has to compromise their political principles or the mission of our political work. In this instance, it was in the brutal, racist regime of the apartheid regime of South Africa. Mr. Mandela retired from public life from political life in 1999, but he continues to lend his voice and moral authority to fight causes that affect the world, such as the global HIV/AIDS pandemic, poverty, and human rights. And so Mr. Mandela, for many of us, is a genuine hero. When I was in South Africa with Congresswoman Christensen in December, everywhere we went, all the meetings we attended, people saying, why is Mr. Mandela still on the terrorist list? Why is the ANC still on the terrorist list? We could not believe this. It was something that, you know, oftentimes you know, but yet you really don't know. You don't want to really believe that. And so when we returned, we continued with our work with Mr. Berman and Mr. Payne, Congresswoman Kilpatrick, Sheila Jackson, and Watson, and many on both sides of the aisle to make sure that we were able to rectify this indignity prior to last Saturday, Mr. Mandela's birthday. Finally, let me just say, many of us were foot soldiers in the struggle against apartheid. I personally probably would have been put in jail because many of us had to go to Geneva, Switzerland, or to Austria to meet with the ANC. Had we met with them in Washington or in California, because they were illegal, we never could have been involved in the anti-apartheid movement the way we were. So we had to leave our own country to do some of the things we had to do to make sure that the support base was built here in America for that. And I do have to acknowledge my predecessor, now Mayor Ron Dellums, because for 12 years he did introduce the sanctions bill. And finally, in the 80s, early 80s, the Congress overrode President Reagan's veto and then put the United States on the right side of history. And so this has been a long time coming, but we just want to say to an individual who has lived quite a life, that this is a legacy, his life is a legacy, it's a life that the world needs to honor, needs to remember, and needs to revere. And so, happy birthday, Mr. Nelson Mandela, and thank you again, all of you, for making this day happen. And Mr. Ambassador, it's an honor to be here with you today. We look to the free South Africa as a model of what is possible with the human spirit and in a country that is a country of beautiful diversity with many points of view that have come together in a transformational process. Thank you very much.
Our last two speakers before the ambassador, we've been joined by Congressman Bill Jefferson from New Orleans, Louisiana. Thank you, sir. If we have time for questions, we'll have you entertain some. Also, our newest member we're very proud of is Congresswoman Donna Edwards, who's from the state of Maryland and told me last night she's 15 minutes from her home. We're all very jealous. We'll come back to you. Also next on the Foreign Relations Committee, our whip of the Congressional Black Caucus from Houston, Texas, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. And let me put in a special appreciation for the Foreign Affairs Committee, now chaired by Chairman Berman, and the Subcommittee on Africa, chaired by Donald Payne, who in his own right has more than filled the shoes of our wonderful role model in Charles Diggs. But this committee is particularly unique, and thank you, Mr. Berman, for understanding the depth and the broad spread that many of us have on trying to create opportunities for peace and dignity and the respect for human rights, and you have been a true partner in this effort. We appreciate it. I thank my colleagues very much, distinguished chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, who has in her own way, established and distinguished herself for her own leadership. Congresswoman, I'd like to call Ambassador Watson, and certainly a dear friend of human rights, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and my dear friend, Congressman Jefferson, and now Congresswoman Edwards. Ambassador, we thank you. I say this in as most humble way that I can, because I want to affirm how special this day is for Father Mandela, and to be able to celebrate the kind of man he has exuded or exhibited to be around the world. And that is that we could, with all honesty, have called those participating in apartheid terrorists. President Mandela could have left Robben Island an embittered man, raising his fist. Many of us have raised our fists for joy, but some have raised it for anger. But he could have raised his fist and called on the people of South Africa to follow him into battle, because he could have declared a war on the terrorists who brutally segregated and discriminated against black Africans. But we're here today to wish him a happy birthday and to celebrate this legislation, because not one moment that he acted terror. Not one moment that he captured the spirit of terrorism. Not one moment that he take advantage of the brutality of apartheid by calling those, as he left prison, terrorists. Not one moment did he take to provoke, to generate violence as he left Robben Island. So this is particularly a comforting, but also the right recognition of this wonderful father of Africa, President of South Africa, first African President of South Africa, who in his own way, stomped out the thoughts that those might have to lift their hand in violence as he left Robben Island, and then ultimately to become President of South Africa. Let me finish by saying we have watched his life as he led this great and wonderful nation state over a period of 1994 to 1999, how he became a rock of Gibraltar for the continent, how the leaders looked up to him, how during his tenure there was conflict, but yet there was peace, traveling to Tanzania to see him bring the Lake regions together, and how he worked so hard to establish the beginnings of affirmative action in South Africa. It would be well for leaders around the continent, now immersed in conflict, to lift this great leader up as a role model, to bring peace to many conflicted areas on the continent. And so not only do I pay tribute to this legislation and wish him a happy birthday, but I say thank God for Father Mandela, and we wish his spirit permeates Africa so that peace might come. Never was he a terrorist, and I'm so grateful that he never called in his new leadership anyone a terrorist so that peace might come. Bless you. And I thank the sponsors and all for this great legislation.
And the final member of the Foreign Relations Committee, former ambassador in the United States, one of our leaders, Congresswoman Diane Watson from California.
I want to thank our esteemed chairperson, but most of all, I want to thank Don Payne, because when I heard that Mandela's name would be removed, I knew that that was the hard work of Don Payne, supported by Barbara Lee, because any weekend that we don't work on Friday, Don Payne is on the continent of Africa. He never once, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, lets us forget that we have an inherent duty to the continent from which we all came. And so thank you for what you have done. A renowned world leader, a Nobel Peace Prize Award winner, has now reached a golden age of 90, enduring the harsh cruelties of the 27 years that he was a prisoner, enduring the insults and the unspeakable pain. And he has risen like the phoenix to lead South Africa to liberation